Hey, yo, what's happening? Peace and power and elevation be to all the beautiful people out there. Welcome to Team Osiris channel. This your girl Tiffany, and here I have Carlos and I have Brother Triz on here. So tonight, subject we're gonna be dealing with the question about what is willpower and what is free will and what is panpsychism. So the reason why what these subjects. First and foremost, let me explain about these subjects. So these subjects are basically dealing with like they deal with philosophy. So free will and willpower and panpsychism all deal with philosophical concept. All right. So and you can incorporate a little science with panpsychism, but again, it's more so philosophical. So these are like philosophical questions. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna explain what panpsychism is and what willpower is, and then what's free will. So let me go ahead and pull up the information about panpsychism. Okay. Can y'all see my screen?
Yeah, I can
Trace?
see it.
Okay. Okay. Cool. All right. Cool. So
Yeah.
right here, what is panpsychism? All right, so I'm on the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which is a peer-reviewed academic resource, right? So according to the website, panpsychism is the view that all things have a mind or a mind-like quality. The word itself was coined by the Italian philosopher Francesco Patrizzi in the 16th century. It derives from the two Greek word pan, which means all, and psyche means soul or mind. This definition is quite general and raises two immediate questions. What does one mean by all things? What does one mean by mind? And the first question, some philosophers have argued that literally every object in the universe, every part of every object or and every system of objects possesses some mind-like qualities. Other philosophers have been more restrictive, arguing that only certain broad classes of things possesses mind, in which one is perhaps not a true panpsychist, or that at least the smallest part of things, such as atom, possesses mind. The second question, what is mind, is more difficult and contentious. Here, panpsychism is on neither better nor worse footing than any other approach to mind. It argues only that one's notion of mind, however conceived, must apply in some degree to all things. All right, so that is the definition of panpsychism. So to break it down in its more simplicity, panpsychism basically deals with the consciousness of not only the animated objects but inanimated objects as well. So basically, that's what panpsychism deals with. All right, so let's look at the term free will, and then we're gonna get into the conversation about free will and all of that stuff. So let's look up free will. So now, what does it mean to have free will? All right, so all right. All right, here it is. So, definition of free will. Free will is the capacity for agents to choose between different possible course of action unimpeded. Free will is closely linked to the concept of moral responsibility, praise, guilt, sin, and other judgments, which apply only to action that are freely chosen. It is also connected with the concepts of advice, persuasion, deliberation, and prohibition. Traditionally, only actions that are freely willed are seen as deserving credit or blame. Whether free will exists, what it is, and the implications of whether it exists or not are some of the longest running debates of philosophy and religion. Some conceive of free will as the right to act outside of external influence or wishes. Okay, and also you got determinism. So we might as well talk a little bit about determinism. Throw it in there as well. So what is determinism? Determinism is the philosophical view that all events are determined completely by previously existing causes. Deterministic theories throughout the history of philosophy have sprung from diverse and sometimes overlapping motives and consideration. All right. The opposite of determinism is some kind of indeterminism, otherwise called non-determinism or randomness. Determinism is often contrasted with free will, although some philosophers claim that the two are compatible. All right. So that's the definition of free will, and then we got to look at willpower. All right, so it's called will to power. So now, the will to power is a prominent concept in the philosophy of Frederick Nietzsche, however you say it. The will to power describes what Nietzsche may have believed to be the main driving force in humans. However, the concept was never systematically defined in Nietzsche's work, leaving its interpretation open to debate. All right. So now I'm just gonna stop right there, and I'm gonna go ahead and ask some questions. So starting with you, brother Carlos. What is your take on panpsychism?
Actually, in the beginning, I was more of a panpsychist. Now I'm kind of moving towards analytical idealism, but I still understand why panpsychism exists. Okay, so let me explain. So
Okay.
you got basically when it comes to consciousness, we have two perspectives: materialism, which means that consciousness comes from the brain, from like activities, like physical activities that happen within the brain, and consciousness comes from that. And then you have, so that's materialism. Then you have dualism, which is either basically saying that the body is one thing or physical matter is one thing, and then conscious is something different. You know, like it's two different things. Mind is one thing, and matter is another thing. And then you got panpsychism, where I kind of tend towards is just saying that consciousness is the intrinsic nature of everything. Like everything is consciousness. So that's kind of where I stand at with panpsychism. Now, when you talk about everything is consciousness, people will be like, well, is a sock conscious, or is a rock or an atom or electron conscious? Well, panpsychists would say that not in the way that humans are. It's a more primitive kind of primal consciousness, whereas humans, who develop brains over, a long period of time, has a more complex type of consciousness. So it's not when they say everything is conscious, they're not saying in the same way as like you're not conscious in the same way that say an electron is.
All right. So let me ask you a question. Do you think viruses are considered to be panpsychism or part of panpsychism? Viruses.
Well, yeah. According to panpsychism, yes. Viruses are, you know, obviously. Well, I wouldn't say they're living, but they exist. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, so everything. So consciousness is the fundamental nature of reality. It's nothing that is not consciousness. You feel me? From a panpsychist view. Because the reason panpsychists take this position is because materialism can't explain how physical processes in the brain, how consciousness comes from that. They could tell you, certain things, but they can't tell you why you see the color red, why you taste, they can't tell. Materialism can't tell you why you experience, and experience is directly tied to consciousness. So if materialism can't tell me why I, feel emotions, or why, why I feel emotions in the way I do, why I experience the way I do, then okay, we go to dualism. But dualism doesn't make any sense to me, because now it's getting spooky. You saying that I have, that this mind that I can't see is something else, like something spiritual or something spooky or something like that. Whereas panpsychism is saying no, everything is consciousness. You see what I'm saying?
Mm. Okay, so well, let me ask a question since we on that topic about dualism. All right, don't you think dualism, the way I understand dualism, I understand it as, you got the opposites. You got like good, bad. You have the opposite of right is wrong. The opposite of poor is rich. Don't you think those things bad? I mean, don't you think there's a balance when it comes to dualism? I mean, like, especially when it comes to the mind, right? Don't you think the mind has some type of balance of both? Like, one part of the mind can perceive things a bad way, and then the other part of the mind can perceive things in a good way. Carlos.
I'm gonna say this. The problem with dualism is that it's saying that that your mind and your body is two different things. You feel what I'm saying? But like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, how's your mind and your body two different things?
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, hmm. I guess because the mind operates differently from the body. Like, the body might be doing one thing, but your mind thinking somewhere else. Like, okay, you could be physically running up the street or something, but your mind thinking that you're somewhere on the field, on the track field. You know what I'm saying? Your mind is like visioning you being on a track field, or doing some type of Olympics or something. You see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
But
yeah,
you're not.
definitely. Yeah, I see
Yeah,
what you're
but
saying. Your mind,
right.
you could be, your mind could be somewhere else, but your body is doing something. But is that saying? But are you? But that's still not saying that your mind and body are two different things, though. You gotta, in order to be a dualist, you have to believe, regardless of what your mind and body doing. Basically, what I'm trying to ask you is your mind and your body two different things? Is your is
I
your
mean,
mind is your mind and your body two different things, or is it all the same at some on some level? You see what I'm saying? Is your mind and your body? You see? So
now
like,
your mind
if I
and
was,
body should be connected to one another, but
so
we
that
all
mean it's
know, but we
okay.
all
Go
know that
ahead.
it doesn't always be the case. You know, where the mind connects with the body, we know that that's not always the case, because
But
again,
how would you experience, if you know what I'm saying? If it was two different things, how do you have experience then? You know what I'm saying?
okay, well, I can kind of use an example, but then again, let's say somebody who does psychedelic. But this is from what people who have done psychedelic. This is what they say. They say when they do psychedelic, they have like a out of body experience. All right. So physically, you still here, but because you're on the psychedelic, it's like your mind is altering. Your mind is somewhere else. So you know you're still, at the end of the day, it's two different things, because your body is physical. Your mind is really not so physical. It's more so like abstract.
But you still have consciousness, though. You still have consciousness. You still experiencing. You still, like, you see what I'm saying? Like, just because your mind is altered does not mean that, just because your mind is altered does not mean that it's somewhere else, or it's, you see what I'm saying? the fact that you take psychedelics and you experiencing is proving to you that you still are you. You don't become something else, or you see what I'm saying? You don't separate from your consciousness like that. You always conscious.
Right,
It never really cuts off. You see what I'm saying?
right. What I'm saying is because people, at the end of the day, like you are your physical body, or should I say your physical body is physical, right? But your mind has a perception of its own. Like people think that there's something else, but in actuality, they're not that something else. You know what I mean? Physically, but mentally. You know what I'm saying? It's like mental versus physical type of thing.
Yeah.
Are you
The
following
heart.
me?
Yeah. Yeah. So panpsychism just came about because people were trying to get around the hard problem of consciousness. Which, like I said, the hard problem of consciousness is how do you explain using science? How do you explain where experience comes from? If conscious,
Mm-hmm.
how
Okay.
do you explain?
Carlos, I can't hear you going out. Carlos? Okay. Yeah, Carlos
Another
done went out.
explanation.
I'm sorry. What you say? Carlos.
Hello, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you had went out. I didn't catch the part what you were saying because you went out.
Yeah. So I was just saying that panpsychism trying to get around the hard problem of consciousness. That's basically the hard problem of consciousness. How do you describe experience? Because materialism or physicalism, physics can only give you mathematical models and predict stuff. It can't explain why you experience why do you feel a you? Why is you Tiffany and you feel a you? Like physics can't explain that. So panpsychism, like, okay, if materialism can't explain that and dualism, what I'm saying, can't, then panpsychism tries to explain that in their own way. You feel what I'm saying? It's kind of a middle
Right.
way between physicalism or materialism and dualism.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, we'll come back to that. Brother Triz, what's your stance on panpsychism?
Peace, peace. First off, that was a great bill. I was listening to y'all. Um, I think from how you was reading the definition, it was saying
Uh-huh.
not that everything is consciousness, but that everything has consciousness. I think is what it was saying, and it
What?
might be another school of
It,
thought that
yeah,
comes
it's
after that says no, that consciousness is the baseline from which the matter and everything else comes from. So it's all tied to consciousness from the start, rather than these objects like inheriting some kind of consciousness of their own or whatever. They just already have that, or whatever it takes to make whatever organism or whatever molecule or atom already has a consciousness. So the electron and then whatever makes up the electron obviously had to have a consciousness as well, because it's all like everything is consciousness. I think that's a different school of thought than panpsychism, even if I'm recalling it correctly.
well, it's different schools of thought within panpsychism. It's different approaches.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, what you're saying is right and exact. It's all panpsychism, but the newer school has different approaches, like Philip Goff and Galen Strauss. What the fuck is my bad, yeah. So, but yeah, the newer school has different approaches than classical panpsychism, but it's all
Okay.
saying the same thing though.
Got you. But yeah, I agree with you when you were saying like you're trying to get around the hard problem of consciousness, and we come up with these different, hypotheses and theories and things to explain what it is that you just got done saying. You can't really explain with like measuring electrical impulses and stuff like that we could do with our physical, brain and stuff. that doesn't give you the picture that we see with our sensory organs that's in our brain or our mind. You can't really see that, through a machine or whatever, through monitoring. But it's like, to me, it's definitely one and the same, but we just don't know how to explain it yet, or something like that. That's where I'm coming from with it. Is like, I don't see dualism as viable. I would say that I don't really see this dualism thing as viable. Panpsychism is probably not explaining it correctly, whatever the school is. But I would say the school that's saying that everything is consciousness is the closest to explaining how I think it really is, or whatever, when I think about it in my head or whatever. But it's super interesting though. Like, we're trying to quantify these abstract things. Sister Tiff used the word abstract. We're trying to quantify something that's abstract, and it's hard to do that. We can't even though we are the owners and possessors of what we call this consciousness, this brain, mind, whatever. We still cannot, we can't take it out of our head and then open it up and be like, oh, I can see what I was thinking. No, you can't. You know what I'm saying? When we dig up, when we do archaeology and stuff like that, we don't know what these people were thinking per se. Even if we might know what language they were writing it in, or stuff like that, what they might have spoke, you still don't know what their mind was thinking, how they correlated images with the data that they were seeing, or smelling or touching or whatever with their sensory organs. So I start thinking about stuff like that. Like, maybe it gets interpreted differently depending on, of course, first, what kind of organism you are, or if you even an organism, or something lower than an organism, like a virus that's not alive, but it is existing. I like how you put that earlier. It's like, it's not alive, but it does exist. It's like it's pieces of life, but not a complete life yet. So that's why it has to live off of you, or other organisms or whatever. But that has to be some sort of form of consciousness. Maybe we just can't understand all the different forms of consciousness that do exist, right? Once you start getting down into is a proton conscious or whatever. For us, we would be like, nah, I don't understand, it don't compute, you know what I'm saying, compared to how I'm conscious. But maybe it is, you know what I'm saying, in whatever kind of way, whatever minute way it is, that it has to be given reverence to, or whatever, or acknowledged, or whatever.
Okay. Well, so let me show you guys an article. I had put this inside the group chat. The most recent article that came out. I hope you guys see it. Yes. All right. So this article here it's from brainpickings.org. And it says, consciousness and the nature of the universe. How panpsychism and its fault lines shade in the ongoing mystery of what we are. And it goes on to say, we barely begun to understand our place in the cosmos. As we continue to look out from our planet and contemplate the nature of reality, we should remember that there is a mystery right here where we stand. All right. It says, meditate often on the interconnectedness and mutual interdependence of all things in the universe. That agent Marcus O.S.I.R.I.S or O.S.I.R.I.S, I don't know how to say his last name, instructed. Any lived mind today is of the very same stuff as Plato's and Euripides. The young Virginia Woolf meditated in her diary 2 millennia later. It is this common mind that binds the whole world together, and all the world is mine. All right, so there's a book over here to the right. It says, Consciousness, a Belief, a Brief Guide to the Fundamental Mystery of the Mind. Okay, so I'm gonna skip down I'm gonna go down here. It says 2 years earlier, in the first year of the 20th century and the final year of his life, the uncommonly minded Canadian psychiatrist Maurice Bucke had formalized this notion in his visionary controversial book, Cosmic Consciousness, A Study in the Evolution of the Human Mind, which influenced generation of thinkers ranging from Albert Einstein to Abraham Maslow to Steve Jobs. Buck himself had been greatly influenced by then befriended and in turn influenced Walt Whitman, a poet enraptured by how science eliminates the interconnectedness of life, who contemplated the strangest and most paradoxical byproduct of consciousness, lifted out from all else, calm like the stars, shining internal our sense of self. All right, and it says science was young then, it still is, and the world was old and the mind was old. Its dwelling place practically unchanged since the cranium of early Homo sapiens began accommodating a brain comparable to our own. It fell on the poets and the philosophers to meditate on the complexities of consciousness, the solved value between reality and our experience made of the same matter as the stars. Today, neuroscience remains a young and insecure science, as crude as Galilean astronomy and as revolutionary in the revelation it has already contoured, yet to be shaded in with the nuances of understanding that might one day illuminate the fundaments of consciousness. Now, just reading that article along, what do you guys think so far about that article and the statements? Starting with you, brother Carlos.
Well, I mean, that was the whole article, or that was just a piece of it?
I'm sorry.
Hello, was that the whole article? I mean, that might.
No, that wasn't the whole entire article. That was just a piece. So that was just like the first, I guess the first 5 paragraphs of the article, the first half of the article.
Interesting. I mean,
Huh?
brain. I say it's interesting. I mean, like I said, I'm kind of transitioning my view a little bit, but I'm still interested in panpsychism and the different things they coming up with. But it's interesting.
Okay. Okay. So, brother Triz, what about you? What you think about the article?
I mean, from what I it's just very like
You going into the matrix?
my bad. You got me. Am I coming in good
Right.
now?
You still in the matrix?
How about that? Hello?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, it seemed like they were saying that there is a consciousness that everything is sharing. Is that right?
You still in the matrix?
Damn.
Oh, okay. Try it again.
All right. Let's see.
Okay, I think I can hear you better now.
All right. It seemed like they were saying that there's this one consciousness that everybody is sharing. Is that right?
Let's go back and pull that article up.
That's kind of what I got from it.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, on the interconnectedness. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, when they talk about interconnectedness. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to deny the possibility that all of our consciousnesses are connected. I mean, I don't think that's a bad idea off top.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how we explain that or whatever. but all of the organisms do sort of interact with each other and, you know, influence each other, I guess, over the course of evolution and, you know, whatever. But then when it comes to like the consciousness of a rock or of some plasma or something like that, it's like it's too distant from how we think to ever really try to perceive, you know, that as being conscious. But again, like maybe it is, we just don't know how to measure that, or, you know, we don't it's out of our range, you know what I'm saying, to understand that, and that's okay too. But with these, I think with these theories and stuff and these sort of views, is that it's cool to tease around with them and like for the sake of mind exercise and stuff like that. But I wouldn't necessarily I guess become like a staunch devotee to either or any of these points of view or these schools of thought or whatever. But some of them definitely appeal more than others, you know what I mean? But I don't think one I don't think it's going to be described in one, you know, in one of these schools or whatever. It's going to be like a combination or something like that at the end of the day. But yeah,
That's a good point. It's how you describe something like consciousness inside of one school of thought. Like, you know, how can you do that? Like, that's a hard task. So yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, I know that panpsychism is a pretty tough subject to get into, because this is where you have to like be really philosophical and really think a little deep into things. So yeah, so it's not one of those easy subjects to really talk about. But it's good that we gave our perspective on it as much as we possibly could to the best of our ability. Now let's get into talking about free will and determinism. All right, so what is your thought about free will and determinism, Brother Carlos?
Um, Man, I might kind of sound contradictory, but
Okay.
uh, uh, determinism, I'm kind of I don't. Determinism is the view that what happens was supposed to happen. Am I right? Or I'm trying to
no.
get it.
It was saying that
What
that
was it?
everything that happens is the result of happenings that happened in the past that brought
Uh,
about this happening, and it just keeps going perpetually.
oh, so like
That's what
everything is
determinism.
it like cause and effect or something or that
I
nature?
guess you could say something
Yeah,
similar
you
to
can put
that.
it
Yeah,
like that.
but it
Uh,
was basically saying everything that happens is a result of something else happening. Like you can't go back far enough to where nothing was happening. You know what I'm saying? Something was always
oh,
happening.
okay, that's plausible. That's plausible. I can get behind that. I can grasp that and kind of, you know, I might look deeper into determinism, but that it makes sense. I say at the very least it makes sense to me. It I can understand that. Um,
Definitely, I agree. Like that out of all, you know, the stuff that we've been talking about, that's one of the ones that's like, okay, I could see that in action. You know what I'm saying? I
right,
could
right.
see it
I
in
could
my
see.
life. You know, everything that didn't happen. It wasn't something that was. It was the first time.
Hold on, y'all. What's
You
up?
know.
What's up, Brother Hero? Peace, Brother Hero. Thank you for
Peace.
coming through. All right,
Hey,
I'm
what
gonna
up,
get
brother
you.
Hero?
Hero, can't you hear us? Hero? Hero, can't you hear me? Okay. Well, we'll get back to Hero. I don't know if he can. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. All right, but okay. So, Brother Trees. Now, into you. What's your thought on free will and determinism? Where do you stand on that?
All right, how I'm gonna come at that one is like it can coexist. How you remember how you were saying somebody was saying that these things can coexist. It's not necessarily one or the other, right? So that's the
Mm-hmm.
lane I'm gonna go on that one. I'm gonna say you you have a determinism from what we can understand about life. We can say every process is the result of uh, an earlier step in a process. You know what I'm saying? Um, so what I say that to say is where your free will comes in is that you have like a limited free will or something within the bounds of this determined existence, right? That you were born into, and then it just kept going day after day or whatever, right? Since we're a baby, you can't stop that, right? Um, but you can make some decisions while you're on this ride. Is kind of how I look at it. So you have like a limited free will within the framework of determinism. That's how it can work together. So that's how I'm gonna come at it.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. That's what's up.
I want to
Uh,
ask something.
go ahead.
It's
Go
more
ahead.
like it's more just like a statement. Like the free will argument kind of is controversial in a way, um, because if you say that we don't ultimately have free will, then it's a moral argument that comes up. Like, say for instance, somebody murders somebody, or a serial killer. Is he really at fault? Oh, if free will is not, if we don't have free will, then ultimately he's not even responsible for being a serial killer. There were just, like you said, with the determinism, there was causes, you know, down the line that led up to him just, being a serial killer. Like, it's not even like he chose to be that. Like, you feel me? It just that's how it played out in his life. You know what I mean? His upbringing, his experiences, all of that. So like it kind of is a Pandora's box in
Y'all
one
hear
sense.
me?
Yeah, yeah. Hold on, hero. You know what you? I will get to you, hero. I just want to hear what Carlos got to say real fast. I'm gonna get to you. I ain't forgot about you.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, brother Carlos.
I'm sorry. Did y'all heard me though about the
No, I forgot. What's the last part that you said? You were saying something about the serial killer, and he doesn't. If he
Oh,
doesn't have free will, then he shouldn't be at. He can't be at fault or something.
Well, ultimately, I mean, yeah, of course, um, if someone kills somebody, in our society, we have these social norms and these, cultural norms to where, yeah, if somebody kills somebody, of course, we're gonna lock them up, and for people's safety and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is that, like, it makes you question morality, like, for me to even say a serial killer, it ain't even really his fault. That's kind of controversial. You know what I'm saying? If you say that free will, that we don't have free will, ultimate free will, depending on what your definition of free is, you know what I mean? But
Okay.
that to me is interesting. It's just, it brings up a moral aspect, unique to humans. Like, you know what I mean?
Right, right. Got you. All right, brother hero. I'm glad that you're here. So, give you a recap. All right. So the topic, of course, is about panpsychism, free will, and willpower. I know you just coming in, so I'm gonna ask you, what is your position on panpsychism, and why do you have such a position? I know you were saying that you had an opposing view. So, what do you understand about panpsychism, and why do you oppose it?
okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, my understanding of panpsychism basically is saying that at the basic level, the fundamental level of what exists, that means that the subatomic particles, the level of quarks, electrons, etc., that these properties are themselves, in and of themselves, conscious. This is the claim of panpsychism. Now, I disagree with that. First of all, let me say this: when we're talking about panpsychism, we're talking philosophy, which I'm sure you guys probably already went over philosophy of mind or consciousness.
Right.
So there is no evidence when we're talking about these things. This is all philosophy right now. Although there are some scientific studies that's being done to try and, you know, prove or falsify the claim. But I disagree with panpsychism for the simple fact that it does not really solve the mind body problem. It doesn't solve it. It really just pushes it to the side, dismisses it, and puts another claim in its position. And also, the biggest problem with panpsychism today I forget the technical name of it. It's slipping my mind right now. But basically, the problem is, how do you, if electrons and other subatomic particles are themselves individually conscious, then how do you take these individual conscious particles and subatomic particles and put them together in some kind of formation and get a unified conscious phenomena such as a human being? For instance, our what we experience as consciousness is not divided into multiple entities. It's one unified consciousness. So, yet the our physical body or our brain is made up of many multitudes of particles, subatomic particles, which is claimed to each one have their own individual consciousness. So how do we put these particles together and get this unified thing that we call human consciousness? So that's the problem. Also, what do we mean when we say consciousness? Because and this is important, because whenever we're looking at any system of knowledge, we need to look at the terms that specific system of knowledge is using, because various systems can use the same word, right? But they can have very nuanced and distinct definitions for the terms that they use. So when we talk about consciousness, what are we talking about? So let's say, for example, in Jungian psychology, when we're talking about consciousness, we're talking about metacognition. So when we talk about consciousness and, let's say, panpsychism, are we talking about metacognition? No, we are not. What they are talking about as consciousness and panpsychism is basically, to simplify, is the capacity to experience. The capacity to experience. And so we all understand that we have a capacity to experience. As I mentioned earlier when I came in, there is no evidence and even no reason, because we're dealing with philosophy, so we're dealing with logic and reason. What reason? Where's the logic behind postulating that subatomic particles, in and of themselves, have experience? What's the reason for it? Now let's jump up scales higher, because if we take the claim of panpsychism and we jump up scales higher, that would mean that a rock is conscious. So what reason is there to believe or postulate that a rock has an experience, or that there is something that it is like to be a rock? I could understand if they were saying it with plants, because plants are living organisms, at least. But with inanimate objects, what reason is there to postulate that they have a personal experience? It's kind of it's see, to me, it's kind of like they just arbitrarily made this claim, and they made the claim in order to combat or to negate the claims postulated by materialism or philosophical materialism, which claims that, consciousness is an epiphenomena of matter, which is also a problem. There's a similar problem with that there is with panpsychism. Like I say, how do you take all of these individual so-called conscious uh, subatomic particles and put them together to get a unified consciousness? There's a similar problem with materialism. How do you take non-conscious material particles and put them together in some formation and somehow get consciousness. So that there's a similar problem. They're not quite the same. They are nuanced. And so this is basically my reason why I disagree with panpsychism.
Yo, brother Hero, that's exactly, he hit the nail on the head. That's exactly why panpsychism was drawn up, because like you said, to basically just to combat materialism. I don't think a lot of thought was put into the reasoning or logic, but it was more so, okay, we have this problem. We have this problem, and this is a way around it.
Absolutely. And to repeat what I said earlier, it doesn't really solve the problem of the the mind body problem, because again, it creates another problem. How do you take individual conscious entities and put them together to get one unified conscious entity? How do you do that? And that is the main problem of panpsychism right now.
Okay. All right. All right. So I will come back to you on that one, later, because I have a response to that question that you asked. So
Okay.
I'm gonna give my position on it. All right. But
Okay.
now let me ask you the next question. All right. So free will and determinism. Where do you stand on the position about free will and determinism, Hero?
Well, what do they mean by free? Is my question. I think that the word free is the problem, because it is clear that we have a will. It's clear that we have volition. For instance, we used our volition and our will to do this show tonight. You made a choice to log on to YouTube, and so we know that there is a will. However, I do not think that there is such a thing as free will. Okay, so our will or volition is conditioned. And what I mean is that yes, we have will, but our will is limited, if you will, is limited by the conditions that allow us to be able to make certain volitional choices. So yes, you were able to log on to YouTube today, but that choice, that ability to do that, was based and dependent upon the condition that there is such a thing as YouTube, that there is such a thing as a programmer that created a program that we call YouTube, that there's such a thing as a computer or a laptop that we can get on, that there's such a thing as a Tiffany or a brother Triz or a brother Carlos Mustafa to get on. So all of these things are conditions that have to be present. They have to be present in order for the effect that came about as us doing this show right now. So yes, there is a will, but it is conditioned will. It is not free will. For instance, if you get a headache right now, you can't will that headache away. Yes, you could take a pain pill, but that isn't your will. See what I'm saying? Or if you wanted to fly, you can't just jump up in the air and fly like Superman. You can get on the airplane though. You see? So we don't have free will. We have conditioned will. So that's my part on that. And of course, as far as determinism, we already know that's a fact. We have classical physics. Classical physics is basically determinism. It's the billiard ball science. If I hit this white ball on this pool table, I can determine based on once I hit that ball and it hits the other balls on the table, I can determine, okay, well, this ball is at this angle over here. If I hit this ball this way, it's going to hit that and hit. So we can determine that. That's determinism, right? And so we know that determinism is a real thing. So in a way, determinism and conditioned will are the same thing, or conditioned will is an expression of determinism. Now I heard the brother Mustafa speaking, Carlos, because they don't know you about Mustafa that much. Carlos speaking earlier about how it could be a problem to say that we don't have free will. And that's because, let's say a criminal commits a crime and you say, well, it wasn't really his fault. In a way, that's kind of true, but it's not really true because we have conditioned will. So that criminal under certain conditions was able to make a choice to commit that crime. So we can't really say, oh, he didn't have no choice in it. You see, so that's why I try to make the distinction between free will, because what do they mean by free, and conditioned will. That's my piece on that.
Okay, okay, that's very powerful, very powerful, very powerful. So do somebody want to add on to what Brother Hero saying before I go into the next subject?
Yeah,
Anybody?
All right, go ahead.
he pretty much broke it down.
Okay, okay, cool. All right, so now let's talk about willpower. So, where do you stand on willpower, Brother Carlos? What does willpower mean to you, Brother Carlos?
The the ability to carry out your mm, the ability to carry out your will, a drive. That's what I guess my definition of willpower would be. Drive.
All right. So what about you, Brother Triz? Where's your? How do you feel about willpower? And how do you interpret willpower? And how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I would say I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to say willpower is it's going to be where you're controlling your ability to use your will in the way that's most beneficial to you. So like he just talked about, you have a headache. What are you going to do about the headache? Because you can't just will it. So it's related to free will as well. You can't just will it to cease, but you have options of what you're going to do, and your biological urges might be telling you one thing, and your psychological urges, depending on how you've been conditioned in your life, your existence, will be telling you things, and you're going to put together the best plan that's going to satiate all of those different things and still achieve the goal of at least, some percentage of 100% correcting whatever issue it is that gave you the urges anyway in the first place. That's what I would say about willpower versus not having willpower, right? If we're going to now flip it to the opposite. Now, if you don't have willpower, you may make a decision off of one of those impulses, because you got like 3, 4 different ones, and you might choose one. You might have a go-to that you like to please. You might like to please the bodily urge, right? Or you might like to please the psychological urge or whatever. That might be your personality. But you might not have as strong of a power over that will to go on ahead and do the thing that's most beneficial. You might just be doing any old thing or whatever if you don't have willpower, the opposite.
Okay. Okay. Mm. All right. So, Brother Hero, what do you stand on willpower? How do you interpret it, and how do you feel about it?
Well, I would ask, what do we mean by power? What do we mean by power? Because see, like, all three of these things are connected: consciousness, the will, and willpower, right? Because to me, willpower, right, is basically intention. It goes back to volition. But you cannot okay, I'm going to say it this way. In order to have an intention, you have to be metacognitive. So what I mean by metacognitive is you have to be aware of what your intentions are. So if, let's say, if I want to uh start a show tonight, I have to have the intention to start the show. So that means that I'm aware of my intentions. I'm aware of that. So let's take automatic behavior, for example. Blood flowing through your body, heart beating, right? There is no will to make those things happen because we are not cognitive. We are not metacognitive of those processes. These are processes that happen by themselves. You see, however, there is a will or a drive to live, to exist, that we inherited through evolutionary processes, right? So, what do we mean by willpower? Are we talking about the evolutionary processes of the biological organism that functions in order to on its own automatically, or are we talking about our metacognitive ability to make choices and to be aware of our intent and act on those intent? So for me, when it comes to willpower, I will first need to understand what is meant by willpower.
All right, that's deep. That's real deep. All right. So now I'm gonna give my thoughts on all of these subjects because I was waiting on everybody, and I'm gonna go back to what Carla was saying, and I'm also go back to what Hero was saying. All right. So of course, when I stand on panpsychism, I can see that I don't know a whole lot about panpsychism, but based on the definition about inanimated objects being conscious, etc. I do believe that it is possible that there are inanimated objects that are conscious or have some type of conscious life into it. So, like for example, atoms, also like a proton, neutron, um, carbon, of course, hydrogen, things like that, and then viruses. So that's where I stand with that. Yeah, so I kind of agree with panpsychism on that level. Again, I would have to like be more in tune and study more into it to get a stronger understanding. Now, as far as free will, I'm kind of with Hero on that. What is free will? What does it mean to really be free? Because technically speaking, um, we're not really free like we think. You know what I'm saying? If you're under some type of law and you have to abide by that law, you really can't. You don't have the freedom to really do whatever you want to do. Because I mean, how should I say it? You do have the freedom to do what you want to do, but there's consequences. So therefore, that means if there's consequences, you don't really have that free will like you think. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, if there was no consequences behind any action, then you could say, all right, I got free will. But when you got to deal with consequences and repercussion based on the choices that you made, then the question of where is your free will going to lie in? Now, willpower is something different. Determinism, that was my first time here about determinism. So I have to really like get into about determinism on that level. I kind of see determinism as being synonymous with free will, or what they call free will, or what I wouldn't say synonymous. I would say like I think it's more synonymous to willpower in a sense to me. But again, I would have to go back and really actually study more about determinism on that level. So I can't really like give too much thought into that. But having willpower, the way I understand willpower means that if you got a will to do something, you'll do it, but you have to be able to have the discipline to do it. You know what I mean? So you already know that you know what you can do and what you're capable of not doing. So whatever you can do, you're gonna do it. You're gonna put your focus onto that thing or whatever it is to do something. Versus whatever you cannot do, then you have no control over what you cannot do. And you have no control over how to regulate those things. But you can regulate the things that you can do. So it's kind of like that serenity prayer. It's the serenity prayer. It goes, saying that give me as a matter of fact, let me look up the serenity prayer real fast. Because I can't remember it off the top of my head. All right. So Let me look it up. Just give me a second, you guys. All right, here it is. It says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change and courage to change the things I can and wisdom to know the difference. So with that being said, that's like the willpower right there. Give me the courage to accept the things I cannot change, but the things that I can change and to know the difference. So that's how I kind of see the willpower in that serenity prayer in a sense. So and that's where I stand on my position. Yeah, that's where I stand on my position on that. Anybody else want to add on to it? You guys? Are y'all still there? Are y'all still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay. You want to add on to what I was saying?
I would ask what would be what's your reason for believing that an electron or a hydrogen atom or etc. Is it self-conscious? What would be the reason for coming to that conclusion?
Okay, so going back to what you were saying about quantum physics, etc. All right. Well, no, you didn't say nothing about quantum physics. You said something about subatomic particle. All right, so going back to that, if we're all made of atoms, right? Can we all agree that we are made of atoms? I mean, not yeah. Did I say atoms or
Yeah, atoms.
Yeah, atoms. Oh my God, what's wrong with my brain today? Okay.
Well, that's a whole nother conversation. But for the sake of argument, I'll agree and say yeah.
Okay. All right. So, anyways, now here's the point I'm drawing to this. So we're because pretty much these particles is what makes us who we are. Without the protons, the neutrons, electrons, and all the periodic tables, the elements on the periodic tables, without those, then we would not be able to have that life force in us. We would not be able to breathe. We would not be able to move. We would not be able to see. We would not be able to be a part of the ecosystem. We would not be able to have all that. Now, we cannot see these things with the naked eye, but we know that it's there. We know that the electron, yes, is a very small particle that cannot see. A person can't see by themselves per se, but we know that the particle is moving, is in constant motion. So now going back to that, so hopefully that answers your question. And also I want to get on to the concept about consciousness. Again, consciousness can be subjective and it can be objective. All right. So what do I mean by that? Mean that it's subjective because based on the one's perception and how one view things and things of that nature, and then the objective because of the actuality that's behind it. So and we all understand consciousness as bringing awareness and being awake. Let me use this for example. Let me say this. Let's say you are on anesthesia. Say you're on anesthesia and you're going into surgery, right? Now, if a person have been on anesthesia, they know they're going into a deep sleep. So you go into a deep sleep. You don't feel anything that's going on physically with you. You don't feel nothing physically going on. Of course, you can't feel nothing. But your brain is still moving, right? All those particles in your brain that's moving, all the neurons and stuff like that, that's moving in. So that's causing your brain to still have emotion. Like that still cause it to be able to move and function while you're in a deep sleep. So that means that somewhere either the electrons and the protons or all these subatomic particles playing a factor into that, which is why I agree with the concept of consciousness and quantum physics having something to do with consciousness, due to the neuroscience. That's one of the reasons why. So I believe that, by the electron moving around, the particles and the quarks moving in different direction, that goes to show that there is some type of force taking place. There is some type of consciousness taking place. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to function, and our brains would not be able to have that type of function that it has. What else I wanted to say? I wanted to say something else. I can't remember what else I was going to say. I can't remember. But it'll come back to me. But also, I wanted to give a response to Brother Carlos about the conversation that we had earlier about dualism and stuff like that. Like he's saying that, well, how's the body different from the mind? Well, again, going back, the body is just the physicality of yourself, but the mind is the mental part of you. So it's just the mental. So the difference is the mind deals with the mental, the body deals with the physical. All right. So just like if a person who have Alzheimer's, right? Somebody who have Alzheimer's, physically they still here, but mentally their mind is gone. Their mind is gone. Their mind no longer exists. All right. So their mind is somewhere else. But that process takes place due to the brain is shrinking itself. So as the brain is shrinking, then that means the health is starting to decline. All right. So with that being said, their body is still moving around, right? But their mind is not in the same place. Their mind is not it's not functioning with the body in the same area. The mind is functioning differently from the body. So I hope that I'm making sense. So anything you want to say, Hero?
I would say, oh man, you said a lot,
Yeah, I tried to explain it the best way I can.
I would say that your argument about consciousness, as far as why you would think that an electron and a hydron atom and so on and so forth would be conscious, really is a materialistic argument. That's the argument. That's an argument, a perspective that materialism would come from. They would say that, like you asked, are we ourselves made up of atoms? That's an argument that materialists would say, and they say that yes, consciousness is an epiphenomena of matter. They say that consciousness emerges from matter and atoms. So atoms is matter, and they say consciousness emerged from matter. So we can say consciousness emerged from atoms, right? However, there is no scientific materialistic evidence to postulate that. That's why materialism, that's why there is still such a thing as a mind-body problem, is because there is no evidence to say that consciousness comes from matter, right? Now, I would say also, because you said so much, I'm trying to remember what you said. I'll take the last thing you said. Now that just left my mind. What was the last thing you just said? Your answer to Carlos on dualism.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So with dualism, how can there be both a body and a mind that are two separate things? I think that that's the problem. The problem is the assumption that the body and the mind are two separate things. Why should anyone assume that the body and the mind are two separate things? And that comes from Rene Descartes. Rene Descartes was the person that
Yeah, he said that was it cognito or cogito ergo sum.
I think therefore I am, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but but
cogito
what
ergo
he was
sum.
so what he was getting at is that, okay, we have this physical world that we can objectively, empirically verify, but then we have this mental or subjective world that we can't verify, and so therefore, I'm oversimplifying right now. I'm really
Uh-huh.
oversimplifying, and so we have these two separate sides. We have this subjective side, and then we have this material side. But again, that's just a postulate. There's no evidence, no proof that those two things are separate things. And just like there's no evidence that consciousness emerges from matter. And in fact, if you take the inverse, if you go the other way and say that matter emerges from consciousness, that's when it comes to logic, that is more logically accessible than saying consciousness comes from matter, because of the concept of reducibility, right? So what is reducibility? Reducibility is basically being able to explain one thing, one phenomenon, one event in terms of another, right? So if we try to explain everything in terms of matter, right? If we try to reduce everything in terms of matter, we run into the mind body problem. We run into the problem of consciousness. However, everything can be explained in terms of consciousness. We can reduce everything to consciousness, but you can't reduce consciousness to anything, right? Otherwise, there wouldn't be a problem right now. So, what I mean when I say we can reduce everything to consciousness, we can't even study the material world or use the tools of science without consciousness. We need to have consciousness even in order to apply the scientific method. You see what I'm saying? So all of the things, studying science, the findings of science, philosophy, all of the reasoning, all of these things can be reduced back to there being such a thing as consciousness. You see? But you can't say that, we can't say for a fact, well, consciousness comes from any of these things. So to me, it's very easy. It's easy logic. It makes very much sense to me to say that consciousness is the ontological primitive. And again, by saying it is the ontological primitive, we are saying that it is the prime fundamental property that's necessary for anything else to exist. So again, everything can be reduced to consciousness. You with me? So I still cannot understand why, or see the reasoning behind why even postulate that an atom is conscious, because I still don't understand why I come to that conclusion. So you brought up the idea of being put under anesthesia, right? And when we're
Yes.
under anesthesia, we basically lose, if you will, for lack of a better word right now, we basically lose our consciousness, right?
No, 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 no. Okay. How
No,
can I put it?
I'm not saying you said that. I was just asking that question. But go ahead and say what you was going to say.
Okay, so it's like you lose. I mean, you're going into it. I mean, how can I put it like this? You're lose consciousness as in the sense of you're not able to move your body. All
Right,
right.
right, right.
You're in a deep sleep. Like you know how a person go into a coma, right?
Absolutely.
All right. But they're still conscious, like their brain is still in motion. They're just in a deep sleep. They're not able to respond. They're not able to move at the
Okay.
moment. But there is still consciousness taking place. Why? Because the brain activity is still going. The brain activity is still activating.
Now,
So,
do you,
Correct.
now do you see what you just said? You said
mhm.
there's still consciousness because the brain is still going. That is a materialist argument. In other words, you're saying because there is a brain, there is this consciousness, but we cannot make that claim. We cannot say that it is the brain that allows consciousness. We can't say that. We
Right.
can
And
say that consciousness correlates to a brain, but correlation, as we know the saying, correlation does not equal causation. You see, so
yeah,
that's why like these arguments are very nuanced,
they are.
right? And you have to be very strict and very rigorous with the reasoning with these things. Otherwise, we can mix them up, and then once it's mixed up, oh man, you got to start all over because
Right.
everything is going to be wrong because you
They
mixed up
start
different,
coming. Yeah.
you know, from a faulty premise. You see,
Yeah.
so this stuff is tricky. It's tricky, and that's why, like for instance, I agree. I strongly agree with, like you guys know, I'm into Buddhism and Eastern philosophy, and I'm into non-dualistic philosophy. I'm also into a more modern day philosophy by a guy named Bernardo Castro, who also postulates through reason that consciousness is the ontological primitive. because we just reason alone, we're not even talking about the spiritual stuff. We know what the spiritual people are going to say, but just using reason alone and looking at the empirical evidence that quantum physics shows, logically, it is more logical to assume or to conclude based on what we see so far that consciousness is the fundamental root, primal thing, primal cause of everything else. I mean, now, I say that, but at the same time, I also recognize that in all of this stuff could be wrong. This is why science continues to do studies, and even philosophy continues to have these conversations because we don't know.
True indeed.
So
True
we're
indeed.
so we're just having a conversation right now about the possibilities of these things, you know. So I think your position. I think all the things that I heard here tonight. I didn't get a chance to hear everything because I was actually knocked out when y'all started the show.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah,
It's
but I,
understandable.
I think this is a very great conversation, a very deep conversation, and I think this is something that we should look further into and then revisit again, have this conversation again.
All right. All right.
Definitely.
So I want to show you guys some books and websites where y'all can go if y'all need to look up some information or whatnot. So right here, um, I always recommend going to Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. So this is a good website. It goes into like, especially if you're like looking into anything that's philosophical, whether it be about free will, willpower, or panpsychism, or either metaphysics. And I got a question to ask you, Hero, about metaphysics. So don't go nowhere. But yeah, this is one of the websites I recommend. And then the other website, of course, which is a peer-reviewed website. Both of them are peer reviews, but this one is strongly recommendable. So this website right here, which is the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy. All right, it's a peer-reviewed academic resource, a great website. So anything that's philosophical, any philosophical definition that somebody want to look into or something, I would recommend them going on this website to find it. All right, and also, let me show you guys some of the books. All right, so this book right here is dealing with panpsychism. Okay, so the name of this book is called the the Rutledge Handbooks, and it's called the Rutledge Handbook of Panpsychism, edited by William E. Sager. All right, so right here, that's the name of that book. And then here's a good book, I think. So I happen to, like I said, I have to read them myself. All right. So this one is called Free Will, Predestination, and Determinism by John Calburn. All right. By John Calburn. Okay. And then I have another one. All right. Well, this one goes into the willpower. All right. All right. So this book is called Willpower: Rediscovering the Greatest Human Strength. Roy F. Bunsmister and John Ternani, or however you say his last name. All right. All right. This book is called Willpower. It came out in 2011. Yep. All right then. Um, and then one more book. I want to show y'all one more. So here's one more book. It's called Panpsychism: The Philosophy of Sensoris Cosmo by Peter Els. Panpsychism: The Philosophy of Sensoris Cosmo by Peter Els. All right.
Cool stuff. Hey,
So, anyways, yeah,
see if you can go to Amazon and pull up a book by Peter Goff. It's called
Peter Goff.
Yes, I mean
Okay.
Philip Goff. Excuse me, Philip Goff. It's called Galileo's Error. Error. That's another book on panpsychism, and it's more modern, the more up to date philosophical approaches to what's going on with panpsychism. That's another great book to look into on panpsychism. I mean, and in fact, Philip Goff is probably has the best arguments in favor of panpsychism. So, if like you, Tiffany, you agree with panpsychism, you should probably look into Philip Goff's. Yes, that's it. Look into his work
Okay.
because he has the best arguments for
Okay.
panpsychism.
All right. All right. We'll look into that. And of course the paperback is $10.99. The hardcover is $23.95, and the Kindle is $12.99, and then the audiobook is free, of course. All right. So yeah. All right. So I see what you're talking about right here. Galileo's era. Uh, okay. But anyways, yes, Galileo era's foundation for a new science of consciousness. All right. Cool. Thank you for that suggestion, Hero. Thank you. I
You're welcome.
appreciate that. Yeah. Okay. So now, Hero, I got a question for you. Um, Real fast. Do you think that consciousness? I mean, not consciousness. Do you think panpsychism panpsychism will be associated with metaphysics?
Yes, yes. Panpsychism,
Okay.
it is a philosophical argument, and it's part of the philosophy of mind or philosophy of consciousness. And we know that that goes into metaphysics and ontology. So
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. That's all I wanted to know. That's all I wanted to know. All right. Well, then I appreciate it. Thank you for coming through, and shout out to Brother Triz and Brother Carlos. Thank them for coming through, sharing their thoughts and opinion. Um, this was a great show. This was a great dialogue. So if anybody that's out there watching, make sure you guys subscribe to Team Osiris channel and check out the other video contents. Also share this channel, hit the notification bell whenever we come on, because we're gonna have more topics coming along in the future. So please look out for that. And also check out Brother Hero's channel, Brother what's it, Hero GMR Jones channel on YouTube, and check out my channel, which is Tiffany French channel. So check out the
Also
great content.
check out Valley Triz. That's
Yeah,
Triz, Brother Triz channel. And then we have the Modern Griots. That's Brother Carlos's channel.
right. And then also the descendant of O'Malley. Yeah, descendant of
Yes,
O'Malley.
yes, yes.
That's
That's
another
Brother
channel.
Malik's channel. That's an awesome channel. Awesome stuff.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. All right then. Well, you guys, until next time, please take it easy. Please be safe during this pandemic. We're dealing with a crisis here, but no, I mean seriously, a crisis. Like it's a serious
Absolutely.
crisis. It's no joke. All joke aside, but yes, please be safe and please be careful. Anything else you want to say, Hero, before I close it out?
I just want to say love, peace, and wisdom to the audience, to you, to the panel that was here tonight, and that's it. Hope you enjoyed the show.
All right then. All right then. Peace and power, and I'll connect with y'all later. All right.
Peace.
Peace.